favorites. Aww. Hello friends, and welcome to another video. Today I am going to share the books that I read in August. This means that it's already September. It's the 1st of September. That's crazy to me. This year has gone by so fast, and I thought about this, but I think it's mainly because we are spending the majority of our days in the house, and somehow that makes time go faster. Anyways, I've read 6 books in August. August has also been the month in which I found a new YA fantasy book that I love, and I am gonna say it. It is my favorite so far of the year. I can't wait to share it with you guys. It is a book that hasn't been released yet. It's going to be released in March 2021. I got it in a FairyLoot box. So excited for it, and I so hope it's going to be a series, but I'm gonna save the best for last. 6 might not be a huge number, but in my defense, they were all well above 300 pages, and one of them is like 800 something pages. So I'm still kind of proud of myself that I managed to read 6 books, and I'm ready to discuss them with you guys. So if you like these kind of videos, then don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit that bell so you never miss another video of me again. Let's get started. First book that I finished in August is A Court of Frost and Starlight, also known as Aquaphos. This is a novella with a very shiny cover, and this takes place after the first 3 court books, so A Court of Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, and Wings and Ruin. Yeah, just had to check that for a sec. I did an entire video on all the court books because I have recently finished them all, and in this book was also a sneak peek of A Court of Silver Flames, where Nesta is going to be our main character. I go into a lot of detail in my review of all the court books, so in this video I will keep it brief. This book is best described as a Christmas celebration in Prythian where all the characters come together. It is basically just about seeing how all the characters got through this awful period, through loss and trauma, and how they cope with that. There's also a big part that's about Rhys and Feyre and their relationship and all the crazy places where they have sex. To give you an example of how trauma and loss are represented in this book, there's a part where Feyre walks into an art studio and she sees a tapestry that represents the loss of someone's husband, and she asks the person that made it, how did you do this? And then this person replies with, I have to create or it was all for nothing. I have to create or I will crumple up with despair and never leave my bed. I have to create because I have no other way of voicing this. I think that is just a beautiful quote and a beautiful way of explaining it, because I can relate in that way. I'm also dealing with loss, so reading this part really had an emotional impact on me. If you love this series, then I definitely recommend reading this book. As I said, nothing big happens, but it's just more of the characters that we love. So I gave this book 4 stars. And then I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This was a good book. I wasn't expecting that. When I read the description, I was like, it could potentially be good, but it was actually really, really good. I enjoyed it. I couldn't put the book down, and it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but honestly, I don't think that description does it justice, because it is so much more than that. I mean, yes, there's a beast who is also a man. He's called Ren, one of the main characters. He lives in this big castle in Emberfall, another realm, with his servant called Grey. And yes, there is a curse that needs to be broken by true love, but that's basically it. And I mean, isn't that like every Disney movie you ever saw? So I don't think it's necessarily a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Also, our other main character, Harper, isn't your traditional beauty. She has cerebral palsy. She isn't like very beautiful. She's just a normal girl. And then one day she sees Grey kidnapping a woman, and she decides that she has to do something about it, and that's the point where she is dragged into Emberfell and meets Ren. And Harper is apparently his last chance to break the curse. So throughout the book, you just kind of hope that he is able to accomplish that. And along the way, you get to know Harper and Ren. We follow both those POVs. And of course, Gray. He also has a prominent role in the book. What I loved about this book is that it just feels really honest and real. I know it is a fantasy realm and it's a fantasy story, but somehow the author made it feel real. All the characters have their strength, but also their weaknesses. And that makes it very easy to relate to these characters. Also, there are some really important themes that are discussed throughout the story, like coping with cancer, losing someone you love, and also sexual abuse, but from women to men. Without giving you guys any spoilers, there's also a same-sex relationship in this book, and I really liked reading about that. It was just very interesting to see where it was gonna go. A really strong quote from this book, and one I would like to share with you guys. Just because you couldn't save everyone doesn't mean you didn't save anyone. Just one of those books that you don't really want to put down. The writing style is fluent, the characters are dynamic, the story is interesting. So yeah, definitely worth 4.5 stars. And I'm really looking forward to reading the second book in the series, A Heart So Fierce and Broken. Next up is The Last Piece by Imogen Clark, and this book came in a Once Upon a Book Club box. And that is probably a good thing, because this is one of those books that I would have never picked up. Our main character is Cecily, who is a 66-year-old woman and a mother of 3 daughters, and she one day decides to go to Greece. This is a bit peculiar because Cecily is not spontaneous, she doesn't do things like that, and somehow she's off to Greece without informing her daughters about why she went there. Once she gets back, she has to tell her daughters why she went to Greece, because the things she went there to do didn't go as well as she planned. I'm being a little bit vague because I don't want to spoil anything for you in case you still want to read the book, but the title gives away a lot. The most interesting thing about this book is probably the family dynamics. I don't think I've ever read something that was so family centered, and that is kind of also the message of the book, how to work through changes and difficult situations with your family. That's also the only thing I really liked about this book, the family dynamics, and especially between the 3 daughters, because they all have such a different personality. Also, there's a good message in this book and everything fits together. The title, the storyline, and in the end someone is making a puzzle which is missing a piece. So I like the symbolism in that, but other than that, it didn't make a lasting impression on me. I gave this book 3 stars. I also read City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, and I am so happy that I pushed through and I finished the first 3 books of the Mortal Instruments, because man, this was a good book. Let me start this one off by sharing a quote with you from Simon. People aren't born good or bad. Maybe they're born with tendencies either way, but it's the way you live your life that matters. I mean, it's Simon. For all you guys who read this book, that's Simon. This quote shows how much these characters have grown up, and that was what I was looking for. I finally got the character development that I was looking for in the 3rd book. And I am now so excited to continue the Shadowhunters novels. So excited actually that I bought the next 2 books from the Infernal Devices. And I also bought Red Scrolls of Magic. I just want to read more about Magnus and Alec. Like, I was doing a whoop whoop when Alec finally made his move. So you can tell I'm emotionally connected to these characters, and that is something that a book needs you to do. It needs you to feel emotionally connected so that you care about what happens to these characters and you want to keep reading. Another reason that you want to keep reading is the writing style of Cassandra Clare, because she writes her books like movies, and that is probably not for everyone. But every chapter is divided into different scenes and different POVs. So one scene might end with kind of a cliffhanger, and the other scene opens with a big reveal. So that way you just want to keep on reading to know what happens next. And can I just say that I absolutely love Jace and the way he talks to people. He has such a huge amount of sarcasm and I love it. I mean, I would never try to talk to people that way in daily life, but in this world it works and it's just really fun. The banter between these characters, especially between Simon and Jace, it's just funny and it made me laugh out loud a couple of times. And for a YA book that was published in 2009, so 11 years ago, I thought the sexual representation was pretty diverse. For me to give a book 5 stars, I need to feel intense emotions that stick with me throughout the week. I need to feel really sad to the point that I'm crying, or I need to be really angry. That didn't happen with this book, but I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. Next up is Drums of Autumn by Leanda Gabaldon, and this is an audiobook for me. It is narrated by Davina Porter, and if you've been following my wrap-ups for a while, you know that I am listening to the entire Outlander book series. And man, I am loving it. This is such a good narrator. I mean, Davina Porter does an amazing job with all these different accents, different characters, different settings. These are just amazing audiobooks to listen to, and I just love Leanda Gabaldon's writing style. It's just like taking a warm bath. I think that's the best way to describe it. When you've had a long day, you had to walk through the rain, and there's a warm bath with candles waiting for you, and the moment you step into that bath, that's the writing style of Leanda Gabaldon. Is that a good way to describe it? I'm not sure, but it just feels like home. It feels like you're there. It feels like you're going through these moments. In Drums of Autumn, we follow 2 timelines. We have Jamie and Clare, who are in America and trying to settle there, and we follow Brianna and Roger, who are in Scotland and where their relationship is developing. This book starts off really slow. You're basically tagging along with Jamie and Clare while they are trying to settle in America. And then there's this big event that changes everything for every main character in this book. And that's the point where it gets really exciting. In the time period when Jamie and Clare are settling in America, there are also still the native inhabitants, who are the Indians, and there are different tribes that they come in contact with. One of my favorite characters in this book and one of my favorite scenes is with John Quincy Meyer. He doesn't have a big part in the book, but still, he's a very interesting character. You could say he's a tracker. There's this one scene when John Quincy Meyer walks in because he has a hernia on a very private and intimate spot on his body. Claire is sitting down with a big part of her family, and Jamie's family actually, for dinner. And he just walks in and says, "I'm drunk and I need your help." So among all the guests, Claire is forced to help him with his hernia, and that just really stayed with me because it's not only funny but also really serious and probably something that could have happened in that time, and also it gives you a good look into the character of John Quincy Meyer. If you're into historical fiction and a little bit of time traveling, then look no further. These are the books for you. I think the Outlander books are just brilliant and I can't wait to continue this series. I gave Drums of Autumn 5 stars. And now it's time to share my last book that I read in August, and also my new favorite YA fantasy book. This is, look at that cover, that's gorgeous. This is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This gorgeous book came in a FairyLoot box. It is a pre-release, so I believe that this is going to be released in March 2021. If you're into YA fantasy, buy this book. It is amazing. I can't say enough good things about this book. What I think is even more amazing, that this is her debut novel. In this African-inspired fantasy book, we follow a black girl called Deka, who lives in a small village, and they have this blood ceremony. If your blood runs red, you belong. If it runs gold, you are a demon and impure. And of course, her blood runs gold. The consequences are that she has to leave the village with a mysterious woman who tells her that she has a special talent and that she needs to fight the Death Shriekers. And the Death Shriekers are these awful creatures that attack villages. To me, this story is about empowerment and finding your true self. The main character, Deka, is just doing as she's told. She has learned something when growing up. She was taught a certain way, but then one day she's questioning all her beliefs and she's trying to stand up for what she truly believes in and stands up for herself and others around her. This results in an epic battle with feminism, racism, and sexism at its core. And I thought that was just so unique. The author does this in such a way that it's not in your face, but you know it's there, the message is there, but it's still about the story. There are loads of characters in this book and I loved every one of them, especially the strong female characters, and every character is distinguishable, which is a really tough thing to do. Also, there's this pet, so Deka has a pet who can shapeshift and he's called Ixa, and he is just the most amazing thing I've ever read about. I love him, and in my imagination he kind of looks like this in his shapeshift form of a cat, so I decided to put this bookmark from a totally different book series, Woven in Moonlight, on the Gilded Ones because I just think it reminds me of Ixa. There is a fair amount of violence in this book, but that is just part of the story because Deka's lifestyle is pretty brutal and there is a fair amount of violence that goes along with that. So yes, there is blood and gore and people are getting pierced by spears and stuff like that, but it's part of the story and it's not in any way there to make you feel uncomfortable. And the story also addresses rape, trauma, and abuse. The group that Deka belongs to are called Alaki, and there's this part when they are being summoned as an army, and then the general says, "Alaki of the Mortubera, conquer or die." And they say, "We who are dead salute you." I thought that I got chills when I read that. That was such a good part. I have absolutely nothing negative to say about this book, other than that I have to wait a very long time probably for the sequel. I highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars. A book that I started in August but didn't finish is The Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. This is an Asian-inspired young adult fantasy book, and so far I'm really intrigued, so I can't wait to finish this. And of course my September TBR will be up on my Instagram. And those are all the books that I read in August, so if you like this video then please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching and let's stay in touch.